start off with some introductions. I'm Clifford. I'm the designee for our school. Right next to me, we have Dr. Brodeur. She's a classroom teacher and is one of Forrest's teachers. We have our school psychologist, Dr. Rooksby, who's a doctor now, and Ms. Jimmy Monroe. She's our special education teacher. Thank you. And this is Mrs. Scott. We're glad you're here. Before we really get into the meat of the meeting, I wanted to provide you with your family special education rights. Okay? Thank you. You're welcome. And feel free to read through that. And if you have any questions, just let us know. We'll usually start off with asking you to just share some of your thoughts on Forrest.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being with me here today. Forrest was born in Greenville, Alabama. He's an only child. His father and I never married, and I do not know much about his biological father. Forrest is the product of a full-term, uncomplicated birth. He has no history of head trauma and no history of health problems other than scoliosis. Forrest currently takes no medications and no longer wears braces on his legs. Forrest began school at age 3 at Greenville City Public Schools, identified as a child with a disability. Forrest repeated kindergarten because his teachers thought he was not ready to be promoted to the 1st grade. Forrest has normal grade promotion after he repeated kindergarten, and therefore making him 14 years old and currently, as you all know, in 8th grade. Forrest always received positive IEP progress in Alabama, but I doubt that he actually progressed in all of his goals and objectives. He took the mandatory Alabama state examinations and his typical peers, but he performed poorly. In elementary school, which were obviously grades K through 5, Forrest received positive behavioral reports and never had a behavioral intervention plan. He received grades that ranged from a D to a B- in his classes. He received special education services through the resource teacher and separate from regular education students in specials, which were art, music, PE, computer lab, and Spanish classes. Since moving to Virginia, Forrest was placed in classes for the learning disabled. Currently, Forrest is in the 8th grade in the Shrink County Public Schools. Shrink County Public Schools has requested copies of Forrest's educational records, including but not limited to all special education records from Greenville, Alabama School District. However, due to the recent hurricane that flooded the school district buildings, the school has not been able to provide any of those records. Forrest has recently worn braces on his legs to correct the scoliosis. These braces were recently removed, and he appears to have full strength and use of his legs. In fact, he appears to be a gifted sprinter and plans to run in the track team in high school. And by all current accounts, he is a healthy child. Neither Forrest nor I have any history of substance abuse.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to give you a brief summary of some of the reports, or all of the reports actually, of the testing that you signed off on back at our child study meeting. We'll start off with a summary from Dr. Rooksby here, our psychological report, and he's going to share with you some of the things that we discovered with our testing.
So everything we'll go over, you have the reports for attached. I'm just going to sum it up for you. On attention and comprehension, they're considered to be age appropriate. Forrest's full scale IQ is a 97, which is considered borderline below average. On his test we call the WISC-4, overall results, they measure different things. Verbal comprehension, which is 87, which is the low end of average. Perceptual reasoning is 81, below average and close to average. And working memory 71, which is considered borderline below average. Processing speed 60, which is borderline below average. His overall thinking and reasoning abilities exceed approximately only 4% of children his age. His abilities to think this with words is slightly higher than his ability to reason with the use of words. In reviewing the verbal comprehension subtest, Forrest results are in the low average range. The subtest results range from low average range from for similarities to lower abilities in vocabulary, which is in the below average range. This suggests that his abilities in his domain are inconsistent. His knowledge of general information is average, indicating awareness of the world around him. Shows average long-term memory and recall factual information. Review of working memory subtests indicate that he has difficulty sustaining attention, concentrating, and exerting mental control in comparison to his verbal comprehension and perceptual needs and abilities. Review this processing speed subtests show that Forrest performs poorly with processing visual material quickly compared to verbal reasoning ability. This may lead to struggle with reading in long sections of text. Persons with defects in one or more of these processes abilities may also have difficulty learning to read than those who do not. Forrest scored in the below average range on 2 of the subtests and the low average range on the other subtests. The greatest area of weakness was in phonological awareness. He has difficulty blending sounds together. His ability to remain focused and concentrate varied during the testing. If the task was short but difficult, he did well. However, if the task was lengthy, he had a tendency to kind of wander off task. We administered the Connor-Wells self-report, what we call the Connors 3SR. The results showed that Forrest has significant problems in the categories of cognitive problems and cognitive problems and attentiveness, and is in DSM-4 and attentive. However, the screen did show that there are no clinical elevations in the areas of depression or anxiety. He was a pretty happy boy. Forrest did not show any significant problems in the areas of family, emotions, conduct, or anger management. He does exhibit frustration regarding his academic performance, which is a normal reaction to his learning struggles. The Woodcock-Johnson 3rd edition, or WJ3, test of achievement placed Forrest in the below average range of achievement in all areas. Forrest had a broad reading score of 82, which is below average. Broad math score of 81, also below average, and broad written language score of 71. His scores are evenly distributed. However, they also indicate his Forrest functioning with skills typical to younger elementary school students.
Thank you. I think with all of those observations, they also, OT and PT were also reviewed, and in that review, the teachers were asked to observe him, and I think we'll hear more about that when we discuss the classroom observation. However, most teachers did feel that he's able to maneuver around the room, he does fine, and that his fine motor skills he has an issue with keeping up with things in class, but we'll address that when we get a little further. However, I think we'll hear more of that when we get to Ms. Monroe. She'll share some details on that. I'd like to give Dr. Brodeur a chance to share with you some of her observations in the regular ed classroom.
And I will say that I'm Forrest's language arts teacher in the classroom. I'll start by saying I really enjoy having Forrest in the classroom. He's doing well with the inclusion model. He contributes, he's talkative, he tries, he gives 100%. But with that, his grades he's struggling with his grades. In math, he has a D-, English a D, history a C-, and science a D+. And his math teacher did report that he participates in class and does his homework. He's found success when using a calculator and when she chunks things and gives additional time. His performance in English is sometimes causing him some frustration, especially also with his written components. His test scores are low, however, he does complete assignments, just not always with accuracy. I do simplify, repeat directions, offer additional time for assignments, utilize small group instruction, but he still continues to fall behind. After the reading specialist administered his scholastic reading inventory, which we call SRI, his score was 460, which puts him at between like a 4th to 5th grade level. The his score made him eligible for participating in our Read 180 program. And at the end of the current semester, the SRI will be given again, and the reading specialist feels comfortable that she can make some help him to make some gains with his SRI and his reading ability.
All right, and with that, I'm gonna ask Ms. Monroe to share some of her information.
Okay, so we did a classroom observation. We heard from the academic side of things, and so governing that we understand that he had a few medical issues in the past with scoliosis. I thought it would be great to have a two-part observation. So I did go into the physical education and the health class, and during his physical education portion for that week, I went in and he was participating with approximately 30 students. He did seem to fall into line with the other students. I observed him exercising, following along. He didn't seem to have an issue with the physical part, with his motor skills. It seemed to be age appropriate. He was jumping, running, stretching, that sort of thing. He did take a little time to get around the track, but it seemed like he and his friends had competition, so they were kind of sprinting through. So I could see that his gross motor skills were age appropriate. The next week I did one part in physical education, and the other part I went into this health class, where I noticed that he sits maybe midway in the first row. They had a reading assignment, and it was an individual reading assignment. He did not appear to be too interested. His head was always down. I didn't see him writing any responses from his reading on his paper. When others finished the classroom assignment, they went to put their papers up. He still was holding on to his paper. Once the teacher walked over and asked him if he needed any assistance, he said he didn't need any assistance. However, he still didn't turn in his paper. Several times I saw him looking around the classroom, not really giving full attention to his assignment. Once that assignment was completed, then the teacher gave them a reading that they did in a small group. Okay, he did not participate with his other partners in a group. When it was time for him to read aloud, because the assignment was for them to read aloud, take turns reading aloud and discussing it. When it was his time to read, he was not really sure where the others had left off. So we know that seems to be a part of his disability, not being focused, not being unaware, and not really advocating for himself. Okay. Do you have any questions about his observation? No? Okay, so let's take a look at, I think the psychologist said before, we talked about the Woodcock-Johnson, his test results from that, and he was below average. He was in the below average range in all the achievement and all of the areas. What I'd like to do now, if we don't have any other questions or any other concerns, I would like to go through the worksheets so we can determine, based on the information that we have been provided here, that we will try to determine what category of disability that he falls under, and then we can best serve him in our school district.
I agree, yeah, that sounds great, yep.
Okay.
So which one did you think we should start with? I think there's quite a few, right?
There are quite a few.
When you look at all the checklists, there's a lot of things we could find out, are eligible for, but there's some that just really don't apply, such as visual impairment or, help me out, what's another one that might
Okay.
be off the chart?
Well, let's go, and we can eliminate some of these, and then we can see what we have. Okay, so in this checklist we have, let's start with the speech and language impairment worksheet. Now, we do understand that he has some issues in stuttering, but we found, based on the information that we have here, that his stuttering does not impede his progress, his educational progress. So do you agree with that? Do we all agree with that? So we can just put that one aside. We know we have another worksheet that's called traumatic brain injury worksheet, and we know that he does not, there's no indication of traumatic brain injury, so we can put that aside. Visual impairment, including blindness, and we know that he's neither blind nor does he have any issues concerning his sight. Multiple disabilities worksheet. Well, there's no support for multiple disabilities. Okay. Okay. Autism. I think there also no indication of any autism. Have you had any other tests that we should be aware of that may have? None. Okay. So I think we have everything we need right here on the table. Deaf and blindness, we know that he's not deaf nor is he blind, so that doesn't apply. So we can put that aside. Developmental delay worksheet. This means that the disability affecting a child's age, usually by the age of 2 through the age of 6. So he's not experiencing any developmental delays. None whatsoever based on what we have here. You agree? Emotional disability. There's no indication also in this in our evaluation that indicates that he has any emotional disability. So we can put that aside. But we are eliminating a lot of things, aren't we? That's very good. Hearing impairment, we know that he doesn't have any issues with his hearing.
We did have him tested for that, we nurse did that as part of our initial, child study. When you signed off, that was one of the first things we took care of.
Absolutely. Then we have a category that's called other health impairment, and that means having limited strength, vitality, or alertness, including a heightened alertness to environmental stimuli that results in limited alertness with respect to educational environment. I know I said a whole lot, so let me explain. In this particular category, it deals with health problems such as asthma, attention deficit disorder, or diabetes, or epilepsy, a heart condition, any of those, leukemia, sickle cell. So we know that he doesn't have any other health issues that we know. Now we do know he had scoliosis, but that's not it's a condition, it's not a disease, but it doesn't fall under this category. So we know that it's not other health impairment. And wow, we've run out of categories here. So here we have specific learning disabilities. Let's take a look at the intellectual disability. Okay. Intellectual disabilities means significantly sub-average general intellectual functioning existing concurrently with deficits in adaptive behavior and manifested during the developmental period that adversely affects the child's educational performance. We do know that he does have at least 2.0 standard deviation below when it comes to the standardized testing. We know that he has some concerns surrounding self-advocacy skills or social problem solving. But I don't think that, and that was probably stemming from the past because we understand that he has issues with being bullied. So let us set this aside because we're going to consider, we have a few of these that he could qualify for, but he doesn't fit all of the criteria for it. Let's see if we have anything else here that will closely fit into what we need to do for him. We have the orthopedic impairment worksheet. We know, like we said, we know in the past that he wore braces, but now he doesn't have any braces, and in fact, he's trying out for that track team, so he's sprinting, so that's good. So we know that the scoliosis, that doesn't affect his educational process. So we can also eliminate this one. So what we have is the specific learning disability, and let me please share with you what the specific learning disability entails. It means that it is a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or using language, spoken or written, that may manifest itself in the imperfect ability to listen, to think, to speak, to read, to write, to spell, or do mathematical calculations, including such conditions as perceptual disabilities, brain injury, minimum brain dysfunction, dyslexia, and developmental aphasia. Specific learning disability does not include learning problems that are primarily the result of visual, hearing, or motor disabilities. And that's the reason why we could not consider the orthopedic, because he had scoliosis before. So we have a checklist here, and it covers math calculations, math problem solving, reading comprehension, and written expression. So based on the information, the educationals in our testing, we find that he, under these categories, he does fall under this category, and these are his deficit areas. His processing disorder impacts him in several different areas, which is math calculation, reading comprehension, written expression. We talked with his teacher earlier, and she expressed some of those frustrations and concerns in those areas. So we do see that in math and in language arts, those are the concentrated areas that he has a deficit in. Okay. So with all of that, I think that between the intellectual disability and the specific learning disability, I think that this criteria for specific learning disabilities best suit what is going on with Forrest.
I would agree with this.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use, I guess we have to agree as a team.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, if we agree as a team that we'll go with determining that he's eligible for services based upon our findings, the test results, and the input from classroom teachers, psychologists, and Ms. Monroe, that we're going to determine Forrest does have an impairment in terms of SLD, or specific learning disability, and he does require especially design instruction, okay? With that, we have consensus, and we do, okay, great. According to the criterion, which this will also be attached, all your paperwork, which we'll run a copy for you as soon as we're done here. What we'll need to do is just make sure we've got a couple of things we need to take care of. Once Ms. Monroe is going to make sure that all the sources of data are checked off correctly, which I believe we've gone over, okay? We have some paperwork that we need to sign. This is your consent for eligibility. You'll sign it, and then everyone else that is here will also sign, okay? I do have regulations governing special education for students with disabilities in Virginia, and the Special Education Committee. I want to say that we've determined that he has a disability under specific learning disability and requires special education related services, okay? So we will pass this around. We'll start with you. Since it's just you only have to sign it once, you have to sign it twice, so you would sign right there, okay? And then each of us will also sign. And once you're done signing that, I'll go over the consent for insurance. Yes. There you go. Will you sign that for us? I'm sorry, Dr. Brodeur, we'll get to you. The billing information, consent for billing. You have the right, like if there's issues and things that deal with insurance for IEP or IEP